Welcome back to part 2 of our Queensland trip by road. This is my second video ever, and even though my camera was old and outdated, hence some issues with the quality of the video in some parts, this is still very exciting. Second video is not a small feat, especially when one takes into account how much editing goes into it. Having said that, I will be upgrading my video equipment before the next trip, no matter where it will be. And with that disclaimer out of the way, let's jump straight into day 6 of our 10-day trip to Queensland. On this day, we checked out of our accommodation, which was Novotel Sunshine Coast Resort, and we made our way north along Bruce Highway or Highway M1. We travelled towards Gympie and then Hervey Bay. During the first approximately 1/3 of the trip, Bruce Highway is a motorway type of road, with 2 traffic lanes on each side and a speed limit of 110. Before it turns into a highway which took us all the way to Hervey Bay. We stopped once in Gympie, which is about halfway point on this trip. We had to turn off the motorway to go into Gympie and then get back onto it again. The last time I went through Gympie was some 18 years ago, and I don't believe that the motorway was built at that time, though I'm not 100% sure. Today though, motorway bypasses Gympie in order to improve traffic efficiency by cutting down on time for those who are travelling up north. Gympie truly surprised us by its size and beauty. We stopped at the local service station to grab coffee and ice cream, and then we drove through a large part of Gympie in order to get back on the motorway. Gympie looked incredibly clean and well kept, with a beautiful lake and park in the middle of it, some interesting old buildings and churches which look like they were just built but in a different decade or century. And we were also very surprised that Gympie was very hilly. We went through what seemed like a roller coaster as we drove through the town. Unfortunately, we did not take much, if any, footage in Gympie, as we were largely focused on navigation. On the way to Hervey Bay, we passed through Maryborough, which seemed like a major town on Bruce Highway. We then went to pay a visit to an old friend who had moved from Melbourne to Hervey Bay some less than 2 years ago. He's a former employer who owned one of the major tour companies in Victoria for many years, Harland Travel, and today he and his wife are running an online business where they sell exquisite and collector type of whiskey and other alcoholic drinks. Their online business is called Selling On, which simply means that they are collecting unique and rare types of alcohol and then they sell it on, as a typical trading business would do. Their business model is built around a narrow niche market that exists in a few countries around the world. Our friend is a passionate cook and he wouldn't let us pass without having a lunch with them. We loved the meal that he prepared, which was a type of rice dish that he customized with his heart and passion. After our visit, we made our way to the Yerangan Pier in Hervey Bay, which is one of the longest in Australia. Unfortunately, we did not have time to walk it, as we had to rush to Riverheads to catch ferry to Gary Island, and we did not have much time left. I even received a phone call on the way to Riverheads, as the ferry terminal is a few minutes away from where the ferry berths, and we had to be transported from there to the ferry. Unfortunately, we missed the tiny village shopping centre, as they called it, on the way in, so we had to turn around and go back. We left our car at a secure car park in the village, and we were taken by a shuttle bus to the embarkation point. Ferry trip was smooth, and it took about 50 minutes from the mainland to the big pier on Gari Island. From there, we were taken by a cute little train vehicle to the reception of Kingfisher Bay Resort, where we were staying for the next 2 nights. The entire experience was very impressive so far, and we were looking forward to checking in and then exploring the island in a 4-wheel drive the next day. Gari Island was without a doubt the highlight of our entire trip. If we were to go back to Queensland again, we would probably just go straight to Gari Island and just stay there. Gari Island is World Heritage listed by UNESCO. It was added to the list in 1992, right after timber logging stopped there. I have heard people say that Gari is their number 1 favourite destination in Queensland, and now I know why. While Gari may be in competition with Whitsundays by its beauty, I can see why so many visitors rate it so highly. While on ferry and later on the island, we met visitors from the US, Canada, and even Germany. Of course, there were many Aussies there with their 4-wheel drives, some of whom were staying at our resort, and many who were camping on the island, and some who were just visiting for a day. Gari Island is the largest sand island in the world. This was very apparent when we 4-wheel drove across the island, as all the treks were made of nothing but deep and dense sand. Interestingly though, vegetation on the island is lush and clearly well adapted to the sandy type of soil. The island is about 123 kilometres long and about 22 kilometres wide. It is entirely made of sand dunes. Butchella people have inhabited the island some 5,000 years ago. They have named the island Gari as it means paradise. Since its discovery by the Europeans, the island has been called Fraser Island, but the Queensland government has recently renamed it Gari in honour of the first inhabitants of the island. Gari is where the nature is untarnished by human activity, but rather humans who are there become one with the nature. The island has over 40 freshwater lakes, with Lake Mackenzie being its most famous one, and the one Anna and I visited. Due to its unique landscapes and endless sand dunes, Gari can only be explored with 4-wheel drive. And not any 4-wheel drive, but a large one and a sturdy one. We stayed at the Kingfisher Bay Resort, which is located on the west side of the island. For our convenience, everything from accommodation, ferry trip to and from the island, to 4-wheel drive booking, it was all arranged through Kingfisher Bay Resort. Kingfisher Bay is a 4-star resort that features a range of accommodation from hotel rooms to suites that are made in a way that blend into the natural environment. They have multiple swimming pools, tennis courts, 5 restaurants, 2 or 3 cafes and bars, and more for their guests' leisure and enjoyment. They also run island tours, both on foot and by Segway on the beach. Within the resort there is also Gari Discovery Centre, village store, 4-wheel drive hire run by Aussie Tracks, small fuel station, vehicle wash bay, and much more. We were really surprised by how well priced everything was, especially accommodation. Perhaps the village store was a bit overpriced, but this is expected due to island's isolation. Kingfisher Bay Resort accommodation seemed a lot better than any other resort, hotel or motel that we stayed at, yet it was better priced. However, of course, there are additional costs involved when going to Gari Island, including ferry fee, car park fee, four-wheel drive hire, national park fee, etc. Nevertheless, because the accommodation at Kingfisher Bay Resort was not overpriced, unlike the Novotel Sunshine Coast Resort and Pacific Bay Resort in Coffs Harbour, it all balances out in the end and makes it worthwhile. After sleeping in and having an amazing buffet breakfast at the resort, which was included in the price, we headed out to four-wheel drive on the island. This was the most memorable part of our trip by far. Unfortunately, we did not get out of our resort until late in the morning due to mandatory safety briefing at the four-wheel drive hire centre, which took much longer than we expected. We had to watch a long safety video, and then we went through the briefing about our four-wheel drive vehicle, as well as what to do in different situations. During this time, I realized how much I had underestimated some of the aspects of and dangers of four-wheel driving on the island. For one, I did not realize that we would be driving across the island to start with, as the beach on the west side, where our resort was, is not suitable for four-wheel driving. This was very clearly explained in both the video and by the ranger. However, these extra challenges made our day more adventurous and interesting. The four-wheel drive treks across the island are all single lane, and passing any oncoming vehicle can be challenging or even turn into a bit of a nightmare if the vehicles meet in the wrong spot. The sand along the entire track is mostly deep and dense, and even with a large four-wheel drive, one may struggle to pull up into one of those side bays. On one occasion, our four-wheel drive could not cut its way out of the deep sandy tracks that were grooved in by countless four-wheel drives when I tried to get out of the way of an oncoming four-wheel drive. Luckily, the other vehicle was able to jump into a side bay ahead of us, so we didn't have to. Our luck was doubled as our vehicle was able to move out of the stationary position, even though the sand was deep, and it took a few tries given that the wheels were spinning in place when I tried to move off forward. There was a lot of fishtailing and wiggling before we managed to move. After some 25 to 30 minutes of driving along deep sandy tracks, we arrived at Lake Mackenzie in the middle of the island. There is no other way to describe it but as an absolute heaven on earth. Although we did not bring towels with us, we decided to take a dip in the water, which was crystal clear and of perfect temperature. Although we originally planned to drive to the east side of the island, we ended up enjoying the swim at Lake Mackenzie, so much so that we lost track of time. And in the end, we decided to extend our visit there and then just head back to our resort. We probably would have had enough time to drive to East Beach, but we wanted to make sure that we have enough leeway in case something goes wrong while four-wheel driving across the island. As mentioned before, the treks were difficult, and we did not want to push our luck too much. On the way back to our resort, the trip was much quicker as I was flying on the speed limit to make sure that we don't get bogged in the sand, especially when going uphill. We were lucky to pass only one oncoming four-wheel drive, and the trip was a lot of fun.
Go.
Wow. So where we stopped at Lake Mackenzie, right in the middle of Fraser Island, or Gary Island. We encountered so many lizards. There were so many of them, quite a few of them, large ones. I know a few blue-tongued ones. I know what they look like, so I saw them, but there were other lizards too that I could not recognize. They were quite big. There are apparently also goannas on the island. I read that last night in the Fraser Island or Gary Island Discovery Centre. But we saw spiders. There are 19 species of snakes that normally live on the mainland as well, including the deadly ones, including the likes of eastern brown snake, death adder, coastal taipan, and red-bellied black snake. There are a number of non-venomous snakes as well, such as different types of pythons. I think there's also a brown tree snake, and the green tree snake. That's right. That's one species that I would like to encounter and actually maybe pick up. They're completely harmless. They're beautiful, beautiful species. So I'd love to come across them. And obviously we haven't gone to the seaside. We didn't go to the east side because it's getting a bit late. We were too tempted to actually have a swim in the Lake Mackenzie, so we actually spent quite a bit of time there. And that kind of precluded us from driving all the way to the east side, which is fine because we enjoyed it so much. It's a long way, and we wanted to make sure that if something goes wrong while we are heading back, that we give ourselves enough leeway. There's not many four-wheel drives here. There were a lot of four-wheel drives at Lake Mackenzie, a lot, but most of them who left there together with us, they actually went to the east side of the island. So we seem to be the only car now heading back to the west side, to Kingfisher Bay Resort. Okay, just a few real hairy sections that we just went past. Long sections, big corners or bends, lots of sand, the wheels, even with the momentum, like I was doing 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, the wheels just started digging in, but lucky we had enough momentum to get through, so we didn't get stuck. But lots of sand, obviously being on the largest sand island in the world, lots of sand no matter which way you go. It's really fascinating that the vegetation here is thriving, managing to thrive. Obviously some of these species are very unique and they are well adapted to the area, so they can thrive in the sand. I'm sure that the sand's got a particular type of nutrients and substances to keep the vegetation going.
After refueling and returning the four-wheel drive, we decided to enjoy the afternoon at the pool and then walked across to the so-called sandbar to have dinner. The food was absolutely amazing, and then we enjoyed a walk on the pier, capturing some footage of the storm that was cooking up over the west part of the island, some probably 10 kilometers north of us. The experience of being on this wild island was very unique and special, and we did not want to leave it after only 2 nights. However, we had 3 big days ahead of us, and so we had to get ready for tomorrow's trip to Coffs Harbour. Day 8 was possibly the most difficult on this entire trip. The 7 hours drive turned into 10. We were delayed due to traffic jam between Brisbane and the Gold Coast on M1 motorway. Traffic along this section was horrendous, and we lost probably about 2 hours due to traffic delays.
Our first stop was in Byron Bay, which is the most easterly point on Australia's mainland. Byron Bay is the popular holiday destination, situated about 722 kilometres north of Sydney and about 160 kilometres south of Brisbane. Known for its alternative culture and laid-back surfer lifestyle, Byron Bay features award-winning restaurants, kilometres of beautiful sandy beaches, luxurious beach houses, and craft breweries. Perhaps the most popular attraction is Cape Byron Lighthouse, which is situated at the easterlymost point on the mainland. This was the main reason Anna and I went into Byron Bay, as the high point on which the lighthouse is located offers some of the most magnificent views in the area. We are driving through Byron Bay, beautiful Byron Bay. The nightlife is starting. We have started. I think it's ongoing anyway. There's a swarm of people outside. When we came in, probably an hour and a half ago, it was just as busy, except that it was daylight. But we are trying to get out of town to go to Ballina. That's going to be our next stop.
In 200 metres, turn right onto Fletcher Street.
And this is just one of the main streets. It's just packed with people no matter where you go. Obviously it's January, school holidays. There's lots of live music, some road shows, whatever they are. People are jumping almost in front of the car, not looking. This is unbelievable. The next stop was at the Big Prawn in Ballina, which was only about half-hour drive from Byron Bay. The Big Prawn was built in 1989 to celebrate the prawning industry in the area. It used to sit on top of a service station in Ballina without tail until 2010, when the service station was closed. Hardware company Bunnings eventually bought it and re-established it on the edge of its car park in 2013. With the renovations costing no less than $400,000. The Big Prawn is 9 meters tall and it weighs 35 tons, and it is impossible to miss when driving through Ballina town. Alright, we've stopped at Big Prawn in Ballina. It hasn't been lit up for some reason yet. The lights haven't come on yet because it's dark. But it is still beautiful and highly visible. Although it was already dark, we took photos and then continued our journey south towards Coffs Harbour. We didn't check in at our resort in Coffs Harbour until after midnight. After checking out of our resort, we visited the most popular attraction in Coffs Harbour, the legendary Big Banana. Coffs Harbour is a major centre in northeastern New South Wales with a population of almost 80,000 people. The Big Banana was built in 1964 and it was the first of the big things that had started in Australia. Apart from taking a photo in front of the Big Banana, which is a must of course, we got immersed in the shop and restaurant on site, and this delayed our departure from Coffs Harbour by a bit, but we didn't mind at all. Alright, we are coming into Coffs Harbour and about to go past Big Banana. We've already been there, we spent a long time there. Took lots of photos, lots of footage. The Big Banana shop is amazing. We were stuck in there for nearly an hour, bought a lot of things, spent a lot of money unfortunately. There it is, the Big Banana. Then we went to the Big Banana Cafe, which was also completely out of this world. There's the cafe there on the left, next to Big Banana. And we've had the best massive banana split ice cream and the ultimate banana smoothie. Both absolutely stunning, amazing, very yummy, probably the best we've tried. There are about 80,000 people living here, permanent population. We are now on the way to Port Macquarie. We stopped at the Big Banana. We spent a lot of time there, far more than we planned. A couple of hours, actually. It's 12 now. We left the hotel around 10ish. That might be the main part. That's the mall, I think. Yep, and it goes all the way down to the shore, I believe, if I remember it correctly. It's been a long time since I've been here, but it's a beautiful, beautiful town on Pacific Highway. We are heading out now, just trying to capture a little bit of footage with some of the, highlights of Coffs Harbour, apart from the Big Banana, which is the main attraction there. Obviously a lot of accommodation happening here. There's a lot of accommodation. When I was booking our resort, it took me a long time to actually find something. There are a lot of motels, a lot of private stays, like Airbnb. Our next stop was in Port Macquarie, about 153 kilometres south of Coffs Harbour, or just under 2 hours by road. The weather was extremely windy and rainy on the day, which is unusual for this area, so we did not stay for too long in Port Macquarie. Port Macquarie is a beautiful town on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, renowned for its beautiful beaches and a big koala hospital that is logically situated where the largest koala population on the east coast is. Although the weather was unfriendly during the majority of the trip, with lots of rain and strong winds, we still decided to go into Newcastle on our way to Sydney. Newcastle is Australia's second oldest city after Sydney, and it is the home of the first ever lighthouse on the east coast of Australia, as well as the birthplace of Australian Railway. Today, Newcastle is the second largest city in New South Wales with the largest coal port in the world. The coal comes from the nearby Hunter Valley, and it is transported by ships from Newcastle to different Asian and other countries. Newcastle's wider urban population is over 500,000 and growing, and the city is the second most major business centre of New South Wales, only after Sydney. Given the poor weather during our visit, we decided to drive through the city all the way to the Nobbies Beach, and then we headed out and towards Sydney. We arrived in Sydney around 8 p.m. as per our planned schedule. We stayed at Meriton Suites in Chatswood, which is an inner suburb just a few minutes north of Sydney CBD. Meriton was an excellent choice for accommodation, as they offer stylish and sophisticated suites that are fully equipped with modern conveniences for a comfortable stay. They also had a paid car park with 2.1 metre clearance, which was perfectly suitable for our car. We walked a couple of hundred metres to Chatswood Station, where they have a few food places including Macca's and KFC, where we had dinner. After checking out of our hotel, we decided to jump straight into the tunnel that took us on a shortest route out of Sydney and onto Hume Freeway. Alright, we are heading We are in the harbour tunnel now, and we actually have been in it for quite some time. We've been going under the Sydney harbour from the North Shore, obviously, from the north side of Sydney. We chose to take the shortest way towards Melbourne, and we didn't want to go onto the bridge. We've been on the bridge last year, on Harbour Bridge I'm talking about, so we decided to go under the tunnel.
Our first stop was in Goulburn, which is about 200 kilometres distance from Sydney, or 2.25 hours driving time. We were keen to have our breakfast at Trapper's Bakery in Goulburn again, as we knew how great their food was since our trip to Sydney a year prior. This time we also visited the Big Merino, which features a museum and a souvenir shop. While we found the souvenir shop somewhat overpriced, we thoroughly enjoyed the museum, which showcases the history of Australian wool industry, which is more than 200 years old. The museum is situated inside of the Big Merino, and it is set up on multiple levels, with each having different displays and a timeline that progresses from the bottom to the top. Our trip to Melbourne was rather uneventful and an enjoyable one. We had already done this trip the year before, and Hume Freeway is a major and perhaps one of the busiest roads in the country, as it connects two of the largest cities in Australia. The weather was also beautiful the whole way, and we arrived home just after dusk. On this trip to Queensland and back, we clocked up exactly 4,520 kilometres with our car, and this does not even include the ferry trip to and from Gari Island, or the four-wheel driving that we've done on the island, nor all the walking we did during our trip. The trip was beyond success, and we have collected memories that will last a lifetime.
Murray River Spirit of Progress Bridge. Here we go. Finally, after 10 days of long travel, we are now crossing back into Victoria. Welcome to Victoria sign was right there. Here we go. Officially, we are back home in Victoria now. And there's the sign there for Wodonga, 1 kilometre exit, the first exit. Wow, what an incredible journey we've had.
Definitely.
10 days of travel through New South Wales and especially Queensland. We've done so much, and finally we are back. What an incredible journey. Not finished yet. We've got about a third of a trip to go for today, and we'll be back home.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Please consider hitting a like button, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. Until the next trip, thank you so much.